Good morning, everyone. I am Andrea Toussaint, Manager of the Leadership Development Unit here at Mind. It is really my pleasure this morning to welcome all of you to the fourth webinar in our Leadership Development series for the 2024-2025 financial year. We are pleased to those of you who continue to join us from time to time. We observe that our number of registered participants has been growing, and we are grateful to you all for your tremendous support. Please continue to join us and to spread the word. A very special welcome to those who are attending our Leadership Development webinar for the first time. And we would like to see you, so I invite you to just use the raise hand feature and to let us see you. We are really, really happy to know that you have joined us at this another of our leadership webinar series. Leadership development is not one of those activities that is achieved and you move on to another activity. Leadership development is an ongoing process, as there are so many dimensions to leadership, so many different people and situations in our changing environment, some of which we have not yet encountered as leaders. John F. Kennedy said, "Leadership and learning are indispensable to each other," highlighting the idea that leaders must continuously learn and grow to be effective. It is for this reason that Mind, in addition to its suite of scheduled and customized leadership programs, implemented this leadership development series, which provides the opportunity for your continuous learning to cover a wide range of topics using this very convenient modality. In this financial year, we have explored topics such as employee engagement, why it's your business, with Ambassador Joan Underwood. We looked at mindful listening, an imperative for effective leadership, with Miss Roseanne Linton. And most recently, Fit to Learn, prioritizing health for peak performance, with Mr. Everton Anderson. I hope that you have been utilizing the concepts learned to enhance your brand and the brand of your organization. For those of you who are present at our last webinar, I hope that you implemented at least one initiative or took one action to prioritize your health or the health of your team members. We would love to hear from you, and so I invite you to visit our Mind's YouTube page and comment and share with us some of those initiatives or actions that you have taken as a result of our leadership development series. It's very important to us. Today, we will be exploring another relevant topic, developing a leadership brand, how to stand out as a leader. As you know, leadership is not a position. Leadership is the ability to influence, impact, and inspire others to achieve results. Leadership is not just about what we do. It is about who we are, and who we are affects how we show up and how others perceive us as leaders. Building a strong leadership brand is therefore important for us to distinguish ourselves as leaders in a very competitive landscape. As we delve into this topic this morning, you will learn how to develop and refine your own leadership brand. Whether you are aiming to grow within your current role or to position yourself for future opportunities, defining your leadership brand is a powerful way to stand out and make a lasting impact. I encourage you to use this time to practice mindful listening, to participate, and to reflect on how we can shape our leadership brand in order to lead with purpose and authenticity. Shortly, I will invite Mrs. Georgia Sinclair, Senior Manager of the Leadership Development Unit here at Mind, to introduce our presenter. But before I do that, I have a few reminders. One, you will have the opportunity to ask questions. So as we go along, you can, make a note of them, or you can place them in chat. At the appropriate time, we will provide the opportunity for you to raise your hand and to take your questions. Secondly, the session is being recorded, and it will be uploaded to Mind's YouTube channel. So we invite you to type Management Institute for National Development, type out the word, and there's a playlist with past webinars. So you can add your comments and you can always view those webinars. Lastly, we have 3 upcoming leadership courses that I would like to remind you of or introduce you to. One, there is performance coaching, and that will be held on February 18, 19, 25, and 26. Don't worry, it's morning sessions, so you can, schedule your time. You will be able to get back to your work in the afternoon. On March 11, 12, 18, and 19, that's for just 3 hours in the morning, we have the course Leading with Emotional Intelligence. And this is our newest learning product. We have this course, Cultivating Resilience, an imperative for leading self and others. And, once a leader, you have to be resilient. So we have this course, which will be offered on March 18, 19, 25, and 26 for 3 hours in the mornings. And I'm sure you can add that to your schedule. Also, I would like you to save the date for our next webinar, which is March 12th at 10 a.m. And the topic will be the impact of responsible leadership on team performance. So these are many opportunities that we are providing for you to help to hone your leadership skills. At this time, Georgia will introduce our presenter.
Good morning, everyone. It's my pleasure this morning to introduce our presenter, Anne-Marie Smith, for whom she's no stranger to quite a number of us. And so Anne-Marie is an experienced leadership and project consultant, development practitioner, parent educator, coach, and speaker with a deep commitment to providing individuals, teams, and families with the tools and resources needed to achieve breakthrough outcomes. She has shared and continues to share her experiences and expertise with public, private, and non-governmental organizations, and with individuals in Jamaica, the wider Caribbean, and with international clients in North America, Asia, and Sub-Saharan Africa. Prior to becoming an independent leadership and project consultant, Anne-Marie worked with the government of Jamaica for 28 years, including as a senior director, leading and managing learning and development for public servants, right here at Mind, and providing policy advice to senior levels of government in Jamaica and across the Caribbean region on public service learning and leadership development. She is the founder and executive director of Parent Possible. This is a parenting education and coaching organization focused on equipping parents to succeed in their roles and transforming families one conversation at a time. She's also the founder and executive director of Go Beyond Leadership, a leadership development and coaching brand through which she works with individuals and teams to go beyond their current vision and create impact that matters. She's a founding member of the Global Initiative for Fertility and Family Transformation, a new NGO currently operating in 5 countries: Zimbabwe, Jamaica, Kenya, Uganda, and South Africa, promoting healthy family dynamics and contributing to more equitable, just, and sustainable communities. Anne-Marie is currently pursuing doctoral studies with a focus on parenting and family studies, and she holds formal qualifications in the fields of international relations, foreign languages, development studies, teacher education, development leadership, and coaching. Anne-Marie is a mother of 2 adult children and believes that parents are arguably the leaders of the most important organization in society, that is, the family. Ladies and gentlemen, help me to welcome our presenter for today, Anne-Marie Smith.
Thank you very much, Georgia. and good morning, everyone. It's great to be here with all of you this morning. It's really good to see everyone. So today we're going to be talking about a leadership brand and how to stand out as a leader. I hope that nothing I share with you today will be contradictory. At least by the time we get to the end of the conversation, even if at the beginning it seems that way, we'll clear that up. And so I just invite you to engage with me. As Andrea asked earlier, please feel free to put your questions and comments in the chat. We'll have some time at the end to engage and speak with each other. Paula and two other persons, you have your hands up. I think you had your hands up when Andrea asked earlier. So I'd love to invite you. I'm inviting you to take your hands down so we are clear that you're not asking for us to respond to you once we have started the engagement. So did you know that a significant percentage of executives say that they have no clear defined leadership brand? And what that means is that many leaders are leaving their influence to chance. Are you one of those persons? Whether you're an executive or whatever role you play. Because in our leadership development philosophy and ethos, leaders are not just those persons who sit at the level of executive leadership. Why is that so significant? A recent article in Forbes notes that executives estimate that 44% of a company's market value is attributable to the CEO's personal brand and to your personal brand as a member of that team. So if that's true, how much of your organization's business are you leaving to chance? How much of the influence and impact that you're having are you leaving to chance? Have you ever been sat down and be deliberate about who you want to be as a leader? I have a question for you. And the question is, if your leadership had a tagline, what would it be? I want you to think about that for a moment. If your leadership had a tagline, what would it be? I'm sure you're familiar with different taglines. One very famous one is Nike. Just do it. What's yours? Or what could yours be? Today, we're going to be looking at how you can align your purpose, your skills, your values, and your emotional intelligence. Yes, your emotional intelligence with your leadership role. We're going to see if we can begin the process of crafting your personal brand, your personal leader brand, and to look at ways to strengthen your leadership or strengthen your influence using feedback and storytelling. Do we have anybody in here who is a storyteller, love to tell stories? How can that help to support your influence and your leadership? And importantly, how to align your personal leader brand with your organization's leadership brand. Your leader brand with your organization's leadership brand. So what is a leadership brand? Let's start by exploring what a brand is. What is a brand? And feel free to place your thoughts on that in the chat. What's a brand? What's your organization's brand, for example? What is Jamaica's brand? What is the public sector's brand? A brand is an identity. And so a leadership brand is leadership identity. And by extension, then, a leader brand is also leader identity. So as a leader, what's your identity? What are you known for? When people hear your name, what do they say, think? When you hear the name of prominent leaders in our organization, in our country, or elsewhere in the world, what do you think of? So when you hear the name Usain Bolt, what comes to mind? Part of Usain's brand is speed, right? When you hear Barack Obama, what comes to mind? Charisma. What do you think of when you hear their name? What comes to mind? What is your leadership identity? And your leadership identity is not necessarily any one thing. It's typically a combination of things. So why do we have leader brand and leadership brand? So you're a leader and you have a brand. You have a personal thing that says something about who you are. And what could that be? A leader brand refers to the personal brand of an individual leader in this context. It is how a leader is perceived based on their values, their skills, their leadership style, and their reputation. A strong leader brand reputation is built through consistent behavior, communication, and demonstrated expertise. And a leader brand don't have to be a good thing. So what's your leader brand? And is your leader brand a good thing? Is something you're proud of? Can you hold your head up and straighten your shoulders as a leader because of the brand that you have? Or do people cringe when they hear your name or hear you spoken of as a leader because your brand reputation is not good? On the other hand, leadership brand is the collective reputation of an organization's leadership. So the leader brand is you, and the leadership brand is that of your organization. It reflects how your institution or your organization is perceived in driving strategy, in terms of its culture and its success. A strong leadership brand ensures that leaders at all levels of the organization consistently embody the organization's values and strategic goals. How do you align with the brand of your organization? What does your leadership say about you? And what does your leadership and the leadership of your colleagues within the organization say about your organization? So again, leader brand is you, the individual leader, and the leadership brand is the organization stamp. So what's the leadership brand of the Management Institute for National Development? And what's the leadership brand of the Jamaican public sector? What's the leadership brand of other individual organizations across our country and elsewhere as well? I'm sure you have ideas, very, very strong ideas about different brands of different organizations because of how they have impacted you when you engage with them. And sometimes those impressions, the identity is not good. And that can change, right? Because it could be good today and something happens and you have a negative experience and you no longer think of that brand or that organization as in a positive light. So among your community of family and friends, you have a reputation. That's your personal brand. And that reputation reflects your priorities, the values you stand for, the offerings or promises you consistently deliver, and how you go about delivering them. At work, your leader brand is how your personal brand plays out in the social process of leadership and how you interact with others to produce results. And it is quite possible that your brand in your personal life, in your community, could be slightly different from your brand in your work life. So if you were to ask my children, for example, what's my personal brand? There are certain things they'll tell you. And if you are to ask people that I have worked with, people might have reported to me, or those that I have reported to, what is my leadership brand? They might tell you something slightly different. Not necessarily inconsistent with each other, but we show up differently in different spaces. Yes. So in a particular context, a leader could be seen as empathetic. So let's say that's how you're seen in your family or in your community. You go to the organization and not everybody might feel that that person is empathetic. They might be able to tell you that the person is results driven and so on and so forth. And that sometimes has to do with the context. So even in the organization, right, today you could be, so you are empathetic, but because of maybe some crises and some of the decisions that you have to take, you may not be seen in that light. However, once that crisis or those crises disappear, that empathetic side of you may emerge. And so there are circumstances that can impact and influence how we show up in a particular way. But at the end of the day, the people who matter need to know who you are and what they can rely on you for. Importantly, your leader brand, who you are as a leader, illustrates not only what you deliver, but also how you deliver it. So, there are some people, right, in the organization who are always fast, always quick. They always keep their word. So they're going to be sending you something and they make that promise. And you can depend on them to deliver when they say they're going to deliver. So their how is with speed and being consistent in terms of the promises that they have made. There are other persons who may say, I'm going to get this to you by a certain time, and it doesn't happen. So even though they might provide you with a quality product, how it comes, the timeline within which it comes, could mar the image of their leadership. So it's important as a leader that your personal brand leadership illustrates not only what you deliver, but how you deliver it. And the how is key. The how is key. What do I mean by that? I'm going to give you an example. And it's an example of when I worked at Mind. There was a particular participant that came to the office one day, and she wanted information about her grades. We were not in a position to provide her with the information at the point in time. And she wasn't happy, and so she ended up in my office. I had a conversation with her. I engaged with her. At the end of the engagement, I did not provide her with the grades that she had come for, as she was required, as she wanted. But the kind of service that she got, she left the organization satisfied. So it's important not just about what people want, it's about how they get what they want, how it is that you deliver what it is that you're going to deliver. And so in that engagement, I made a promise to her that we will get the grades to you by a certain time. Now, while she left happy, had I not kept my word to make her have her grades by a certain time, she would have reverted to being unhappy with the organization. And so it was important for me to keep my word. And what I had to do was to engage members of the team to ensure that they could help me to do that. So sometimes you may not be able to give people what they want, but how you treat them as a leader is what they're going to remember. How you serve them is what it is that they are going to remember, not always what it is that they received from you. So what are those key elements of a leader brand? And how do they come together to form that brand? So one key element of your leader brand is values, your values. And these are core, right? Our values are a core element of who we are. And they also drive the how we do what we do. Our values define who you are, what you stand for, and how you lead. And they influence your decision making. They influence your behaviors and the way others perceive your leadership. And it's important, this bit about perception. How do others see you? How do you show up? What are those behaviors that are going to speak to the values that you espouse as an individual leader? The other element of your leader brand is your skills. How, you may ask? Your skills help you to establish credibility. So if you are in the people's organization, or even your organization, and you claim to be an accountant, but you can't do accounting, or your accounting is poor, full of inconsistencies and errors, then you're not a credible accountant. You're not a credible leader in the field and in the organization. Demonstrating strong leadership skills, builds trust and confidence among teams and among the team and among your stakeholders as well. You may have had the experience where you work with somebody, could even have been your supervisor, and you do not believe that they have the technical capability for the role that they're sitting in or standing in. And we know what happens. We know how we will talk about they don't know what they're doing, and we are the ones who have to be making sure of that their backs are covered and so on and so forth. And while that's important in leadership, we can talk about that some more. When you don't have the technical expertise for the role that you're sitting in, that becomes a problem. Having the skills as well as a leader, it enhances your influence. Your values will enhance your influence as well, but your skills will enhance your influence. People will want to be associated with you, associated with what it is that you produce, and they'll want to come to you to help them to get to where it is that they need to go to. Having well-developed skills as a leader as well, it can inspire and help to drive change. The next element of your leader brand is your behavior. How does that work? Your behavior is visible and it's a measurable expression of your leadership brand. Your behavior is visible. It's what carries your values and carries your skills. That's your behavior. So it's a visible and measurable expression of your leadership brand. While values will define who you are and your skill demonstrate what you can do, your behaviors demonstrate how you lead in action. Let me say that again. While your values will demonstrate who you are and your skills will demonstrate what you can do, it is your behavior at the end of the day that reflects how you lead in action. You know, sometimes you're in the organization and somebody comes for an interview and they do an excellent interview. They bowl you over in the interview sometimes. And then they are engaged in the role. And when they get that job, you begin to wonder what happened. Because who they said they were and who they appeared to be in that interview, no matter how many phases and stages you put them through, and what they said they were able to do and may even have been able to demonstrate to a particular point is not showing up on the behavior on the job. And so you begin to wonder. That element of a leadership brand or a leader brand is key. So values are important, skills are important, but what people are going to see are the behaviors. And so we pay attention, not just to who we say we are and what we say we can do, but how it is that we show up in a visible and measurable way. So your values, your skills, and your behaviors, there's a sweet spot in all of that. And what is that sweet spot? That sweet spot is a brand. What are you known for? And so I'm asking you the question, what are you known for? When people talk about you, when you're not in the room and they talk about you, what do they say about you? When you ask for feedback from your colleagues, whoever it is you ask for feedback from, your stakeholders, your team members, those you report to and those who report to you, what do they say about you? And what do you hear them that they say about you when you're not in the room? Your leader brand is very important. We're going to talk about why it's important in a moment, right? But that sweet spot, that combination of your values, your skills, and your behaviors, key in terms of who you want to be, who you are now, and who you want to be as a leader. And why is a leader brand important? A leader brand enhances credibility, it helps to build trust, and it drives professional success. Are you a leader with a strong brand? If you are, I'm sure you know that leaders with strong brands are sought for their value because that's what organizations need. Have you ever been headhunted? Are people trying to get you to come to their organization because of who you have been and who you are as a leader, because of your leadership brand? So again, why is a leader brand important? It enhances credibility, builds trust, drives professional success, and leaders with strong brands are sought for their value because that's what organizations need. People who bring value to what the organization delivers or promises to deliver. So what are some of the characteristics then of a strong leader brand? One of them is clarity of purpose, and the purpose is going to come up again in our conversation. So one of them is clarity of purpose. What does that mean? As a leader, it's important to know and to articulate your why. What are you about? What's your why? What is it that drives your leadership? And what is it that drives your service? Why are you in the job you're in? Why are you in the role you're in? Why are you in the organization that you're in? You need to be clear about that. And when you're clear about that, that sets you up with a clarity of purpose that not only you will know, but others will see as well. Values of alignment is also key. It's a key characteristic of a strong leader brand. So what are your values? And how are they aligned? As a public officer, for example, do you know what the values of the organization are? And are your values aligned to that, to those? And there's a big one now, emotional intelligence. How you may ask, is emotional intelligence a characteristic of a strong leader brand? If you have done any of mine's leadership development course, including the course on the emotional intelligence, or typically any leadership course or program with any organization, one of the things that they're going to cover is emotional intelligence, because it is this fulcrum upon which leadership sits. So no matter how skilled you are and what you say your purpose is, no matter what values we expose, if you're not able to operate or to behave in a way that speaks to a level of emotional intelligence, it's almost all lost. So you've may also have heard, right, that it's one thing to be intellectually brilliant as a leader, to have all the accolades and qualifications and so on. But it is your emotional intelligence that's going to drive the kind of leader that you are and to drive your success as a leader. So your leadership is not just about who you are, but how you make others feel. And that's what the emotional intelligence comes in. It drives how you make other people feel. It ensures that your leadership identity is not only strategic and competent, but it's also human and relatable. Leadership is about relationship. And so emotional intelligence, if it's missing, then you're not able to be an effective leader. So I'm going to repeat something I just said for you. And it is that emotional intelligence ensures that your leadership identity is not only strategic and competent, but also human and relatable. And that's a hallmark of truly influential leaders. Do people describe you as being human and relatable? And as you reflect on your own leadership, wherever you sit in the organization, whichever space you occupy, are you showing up in a way that's humane and relatable? Do people feel you? Do people see you? Do you see them? Do they feel seen by you? Do they feel heard? Do you listen to people? Do they believe that you listen to them? Are you a relatable leader? Leaders with strong brands don't need to search for opportunities. Opportunities come to them. So there's opportunity in the little blue cap running after you because they're a strong leadership brand. And if you notice what each of them have in their hands, you have the key. Opportunity has the lock, but it requires you to unlock that opportunity. So who are you in the organization? Who are you in your community? Who are you in the space in which you engage? I mean, I speak of community in its broadest context. Are opportunities coming to you? Are opportunities searching for you? Seeking you out, running after you, pretty much? Something to reflect on for all of us. So how do you develop a leadership brand? Or should I say a leader brand? How do you develop a leader brand? So I'm going to talk about 4 things here, and then we're going to delve a little bit deeper into 2 of them. A big part of it is self-reflection. How much do you know yourself? Have you ever sat down and do an audit of you? What are your unique strengths? And I'm not just talking about things that you go to school and learn about. What are your values? And what is your leadership style? Are you collaborative? Are you competitive? What's your leadership style? And those are only 2, right? So how often do you reflect? We live in a world now that if you're not careful, we don't find time to reflect because we just keep going and going. And we become so engaged at time that we should sit sometimes and just look out on the beauty of nature or go for a walk or however you relax. We tend to use the time quite often to scroll sometimes, to look into other people's lives, to read things that are not going to enhance or build our professionalism or even our personal selves. What are your unique strengths? And sometimes we have some strengths that we don't know, right? What are your values and what are your leadership styles? What is your leadership style? I was part of a group recently, and we were nominating persons to serve in a particular role. And one person was nominated after much conversation about the particular role and certain names being called and not looking like it would work out. One person's name was called for a particular role, and she said, she happened to have been a part of the group, and she said, oh, no, me, it's not something that I can do. And other members of the team were saying to her, oh yeah, we think you can do it for all of these reasons. And I said to her, I said, I was sitting here and thinking that at the end of this conversation, I'm going to ask you to join my small group. And I was doing that because my small group had a role pretty much similar to the one that she had been nominated for, but just in a very focused kind of way. And so I said to her, I was having that thought because I see that in you. So you may not be seeing it in yourself, but I see it in you. So seek feedback as well to identify what those strengths are. Yes? The other is, as a strategy, seek and leverage feedback from colleagues and team members. I just said that a while ago, right? And team members in the broadest sense. Don't just ask the friends that you have in the office. Ask some people who you're not necessarily on the best of terms with. I'm not suggesting that you're on bad terms with people in your organization, but the people that you're not always in your space. So you work in finance, and you hardly engage with the people who are in another function in the organization. But they see you and you impact them. So ask, find an opportunity. And don't just sit them in the passage and launch at them to say, tell me something about how you see me, etc., etc. But find an opportunity, find time, find space, build a relationship, and get feedback. I'm going to talk about how you do that, because there's a way to do that, because some of us will ask for feedback and we don't really want. And if we get it, the way we show up in ways that are not emotionally intelligent will cause people never to give us feedback again, whether good or bad. Do you like to tell stories? Because personal storytelling is one of the ways in which you can develop your leadership brand. It can become part of what you're known for. It helps to humanize you. So one of the things we recommend is that you share authentic stories to inspire and connect with other people. We all have stories. You'll be surprised at what people can learn from your stories. Importantly, though, continuous development as a leader is key. So upskill and stay updated on trends and priority related to your craft. Upskilling don't mean that you do another degree. It could be that. Upskilling don't mean that the organization has to pay for you to go do something. It could be that. Upskilling don't mean that you have to be sent or go overseas to do a course or to attend a conference. It could be that. But upskilling could mean that you find how to do something on the internet. Enter from a credible space or place, and you learn how to do the particular thing. Upskilling could mean that you ask somebody in the organization who seems to be doing very well or do very well something that you want to learn, and ask them to help you. Upskilling could mean that you have a child at home who is more technology proficient than you are. And most of them are more technology proficient than most of us, or many of them. You ask them to show you how to do something. Upskilling could mean that you work in customer service in your big formal organization. And you have a role that keeps you in your office. Upskilling could mean that you go to the front desk, or you go to the junior person in your office and say, I want to learn. So you do some of the things that they would normally do. You meet the people who go on the front line. It could also mean that you ask your supervisor for, as part of your development, some time to go serve in another organization. So, for example, what are some of the most service-oriented organizations you can find? They may not even be in the public sector, if you're a public sector professional. It might be in the NGO sector. It might mean going to serve in a children's home or a home for older folks, or you go in the community, you have a meal service, maybe a couple times for the week or a couple times for the month, and you join that group and you serve people. You'd be surprised at what you could learn from those kinds of experiences, because you begin to see what being on the front line really means, how your service impacts others. You begin to see what are some of the ways in which you could do things a little bit differently from where you sit to understand what your client requires. So let me use Mind as an example. Mind is the public sector's learning institution. In fact, it's learning leadership development and a key focus as well on organizational development. And we have our facilitators at Mind. We have our program managers and program coordinators. And yeah, they'll do learning needs analysis, and they'll take feedback from you and so on and so forth. But there could be so much power in that facilitator or that program manager who is responsible for, let's say, procurement, or let's say human resource management in terms of his learning and development, to go into one of the public sector organizations and to work in human resource management, or to work in human resource development, or to work in accounting, or to work in procurement, and all the different fields. To truly understand what happens on the ground. What do people do with the skills that they come to Mind, and Mind helps them to develop? What's the context in which they need to be practicing and executing these skills? And so find ways to continuously hone your craft and to upskill. Upskill don't mean that you only go to the hotels for executive development. Upskill can mean many different things. Importantly, stay updated on trends. And you can't take that for granted, because things change so quickly. And so do the priorities. Government priorities shift all the time. Not because government is inconsistent, but because of the pace at which the world moves and changes. And how do you keep abreast of that, ahead of that, so your leader brand is keeping pace with what it is required to do? So let's look at feedback culture for a moment. And these are just some of the kinds of things that you can do as part of the honing that feedback culture. First of all, create a safe environment for people to provide feedback. Make people feel that they can come to you. When they come to you and they say something about how you're showing up, whether it's positively or negatively, and especially if it's negatively. Don't tell them that happened because they didn't do what they needed to do. So I'm late with the thing only because you did or you did not. When they give you feedback as well, especially if it's not positive feedback, it's not something that warms your heart immediately. Don't go sit with somebody in the lounge or in the cafeteria and talk about the one Anne-Marie, and then it is something that goes around the rest of the organization. And so the person becomes a little bit timid and determined never to tell you anything again. Ask specific questions. So instead of just going and say, I need some feedback, talk about, when we worked together on that group project recently, how was my listening? How was my communication? How was my sharing? When I did that presentation, how did this thing show up? How am I showing care and respect and regard for others? Ask specific questions. And when you ask those questions, and when you create a safe space, demonstrate receptiveness, be open to receiving the feedback. Say thank you. It might not be what you want to hear, but say thank you. And don't keep going to the same people for feedback. So as an individual, get feedback from the breadth of your community. And of course, the same goes for the organization. Don't just ask the people inside. Ask the people outside as well. Ask different categories of stakeholders and different tiers of stakeholders about how you're showing up. What's the brand? How are you? What is it that, how are you showing up in terms of this identity that you want to have or think you have? And when you get the feedback, reflect on what you're hearing and identify patterns. So if you get feedback from 6 people and 3 of them tell you that you don't listen, that's a trend, right? That's a pattern. Don't reject it. Think about it. If you do presentations and you want feedback on presentations and a number of persons tell you that you're loud, reflect and identify the pattern. If people tell you that you don't look at the audience, the people you're speaking with, reflect and identify the pattern. And as you reflect and identify the different patterns, what it is that you're hearing, and it could be that one person says something to you, but that one person is representative of many. So even if it's one person who tell you that, who say that to you, listen, because that's the impact you had. And having listened, having reflected, follow up. What do I mean by that? Begin to find ways to be a little bit softer when you're presenting. Begin to find ways to listen. So put on your phone. As a matter of fact, don't take your phone to the meeting at all. Ask questions. Do those little gestures that people know that you're listening to them. And afterwards, after a while, when you've worked on a particular issue, find out how you're doing again. Go back to some of the same people and some others. Ask the same kind of question and find out from them if, you're trying to find out if there are any improvements. Importantly, you're not going to get feedback unless you model a feedback culture. What does that mean? You need to give people feedback as well. Provide opportunities to give people feedback and do it in a way that they don't feel as if they are being attacked. So don't do you are this and you did that and you. When I listened to you speak, it was a little bit extra, a little bit why? Because, it was loud. Or when I spoke, I didn't believe you were listening to me because you spent the time doing X or Y. You spent the time leaning over and whispering to the other person. You spent the time looking at the documents in front of you, or signing the documents that were placed in front of you. You spent the time on your phone. You didn't make eye contact with me at any point in time. So in order to get the feedback and to be receptive to that feedback from multiple sources, to identify the patterns and to have the follow-up, and to have that as a personal leadership, part of your personal leadership culture, it's important to model that feedback culture. Also provide people with feedback in a way that is going to cause them to act on improving what it is that they may need to improve. But remember now that the feedback you get is not only going to be negative feedback, it's also going to be positive feedback. But the fact that somebody tells you that you're an excellent speaker, for example, doesn't mean that you don't need to do anything ever to continue to hone and enhance your craft. So I could be an excellent speaker in a particular context, but not in another. And so how do you learn to adjust how you do what you do depending on the space and the context in which you're sharing? So I might be very comfortable and can do very well with people who work at the same level within the organization that I do or that you do. But if you're asked to speak to your senior executive team, you're not as confident, you muddle your words, you fidget, etc., etc. Or if you're asked to share with an external team or external stakeholders, you don't feel so comfortable. So the feedback culture is very important to your leadership, your leader brand. And remember, behavior, behavior, behavior. So values is one thing, and it's necessary. Skills is another. Key, but the behavior. What are people seeing and what are they able to measure and what are they able to give you feedback on? Because it's the behavior that they're able to give you that feedback on. Let's look a little bit now at personal storytelling. So, have you ever thought about using storytelling to strengthen your influence and amplify your voice? What is your core leadership narrative? Do you have one? Your core leadership narrative is that story that encapsulates who you are as a leader and what you stand for and the impact you aim to create. It is a foundation of your leadership brand and serves as a guide to how you communicate, how you make decisions, and how you inspire others. What is your core leadership narrative? My core leadership narrative is coming from very far. It's coming from that humble home in that deep rural district in Westmoreland. That's where it started. But it has gone to many places. It has traveled many places. And so my leadership narrative has been influenced and continues to be influenced by many things. It's influenced by the time I spent in the public service. It's influenced by the time I've spent in the classroom teaching preschoolers, teaching teachers, preparing teachers to teach. It's honed by the time I spent as an administrator of learning and development. It's honed by my values, my core values, a part of what my leadership narrative story is. So what are some of the personal triumphs that you have had? Share how you overcame challenges to inspire confidence. Lessons from failure. Show humility, and it shows that you're not afraid to reflect on past mistakes. And since you are not an island unto yourself, share some team success stories as well. Highlight the contributions of your team. I'm going to share a little story with you. And for me, it's a personal triumph, right? So I come from very humble circumstances, and I think you know what that means in the Jamaican context. There were periods when I didn't have shoes to go to primary school. When I was going to high school, there were times when my father would walk me to the bus in the morning because he was asking the bus driver to take me to school and take me back because we didn't have money to send me to school. And I wasn't going with lunch money either. And at the time, you never have path and those other things, so I wasn't going to have lunch at school. And so I had to learn how to navigate and ask what I want in the world. When I came to the big city of Kingston, I went to teachers college without money, but that's not the story I want to share. I went to UWI without money. And I remember after I started my first year at UWI, I applied for a part-time teaching job, a particular high school in Kingston, and I was called in for an interview. And so I went for the interview. And it was a slot that they needed to fill immediately. So I was interviewed the Monday morning. The vice principal interviewed me, and he went to the principal to say, I think this is a person. I'm just supposing now, right? This is the person that we need for the role. And so he came back and he said to me, you're hired. We're going to prepare your letter. Wait. And I said to him, wait. In order for me to come to work on Wednesday, this was Monday, right? And they wanted me to start on Wednesday. In order for me to come to work on Wednesday, you're going to have to pay me for the month. He was out of his seat and he sat, in Jamaica we say he sat back down. And he leaned back in his chair. It was one of those swivel chairs. And he said, I can't pay you, you haven't worked. I said to him, if you want me to come to work on Wednesday, you're going to need to pay me because I don't have the money to come to work on Wednesday. I left the school with a check. I hadn't started working yet, but I was paid. I turned up to work on Wednesday and I worked. Why was I in that position? I was in that position not because I hadn't made any arrangement and preparation to go to the university. But summer before I started UWI, I became ill. And everything that I put aside, I spent taking care of my health. And so I didn't have money. I could tell you about the story when I went to Michael Teachers College, and I could tell you about the story when I started my second degree and others. It just so happens that I had to do things unusual in order to pursue my education. But I pursued my education. And I have had the opportunity to help so many other people, including members of my family, including people who are strangers, young people in my other communities, whether it's through church or youth groups and so on, because I understand what it means not to have the resource that you need to do what you need to do. However, that doesn't stop me. I may not have the resource, but it doesn't stop me. And so I know there are people who I've worked with, and maybe some of them are in this session right now, who will look at me as being ridiculous sometimes, or who may have looked at me as being ridiculous in the past because I'm telling them to do things and we don't have the resources to do it. You have to use whether it is your influence. You have to have that certain kind of integrity. People will trust you, and sometimes the interview has to show up before they get to build a relationship with you. And I'll say this last part before I move on. When I was going to Teachers College, I had to resign a job I had at a school. I was working as a library assistant at a particular high school in Kingston again. I hadn't planned to go to Michael. It just happened to happen within about a week's time. Everything just came together within a week. And so my parents didn't have money to send me to college. I'm resigning my job from the particular school. And in the principal's office, I said to him, I need a staff loan. Went to hand in my resignation, and I said to him, I will need a staff loan in order to go. He did pretty much the same thing that vice principal did. Back in him chair, and he said to me, Anne-Marie, you have just resigned with immediate effect. Because this was end of August and school was going to start first week of September. Can't give you a staff loan. I left that Thursday with a check. Why was I able to leave with a check? Because of how I had showed up as a member of staff, as a young member of staff before. I know it didn't just have to do with me. It also had to do with that person. He didn't give me the check from out of his own money. He called the person in. They had a conversation with me sitting right there. And I left with a check. Did they get their money back? Absolutely. Today, I use that story to inspire other young people, not to tell them to not put things in place or to necessarily do the same thing that I did, but to tell them that it is doable, it is possible. Yeah. As you tell your stories, adapt your stories for different audiences. Frame complex ideas with stories to make them compelling. And in times of crises, as part of the crisis management, use authentic storytelling to build trust and credibility in you as a leader and also in the organization. Yeah. So, complex idea is adaptive leadership, right? It's the ability to navigate uncertainty and lead through change effectively. And you might have heard it, a lot of adaptive leadership, well, let me not put it like that. Adaptive leadership was required or is required of us in our current context. It was particularly required of us during COVID, and nothing has stopped, right? Because we're not in a COVID crisis now, but the crises have not gone away. It seems as if they have changed in their nature. We talk about the VUCA world, right? Volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. Nothing is steady, and adaptive leadership is what is required. But how do you get the person in the classroom, or how do you get your team member, when you're talking about you need to be adaptive in your leadership, how do you get them to understand what you mean? Let me see if we can use a story to do that. So imagine that you are a manager. You don't have to be a CEO. You're a Daniel and you're leading you're a component of a retail company. Your business model has worked for years, for decades. But Shane and Temu and others have come on the scene, and they're rapidly growing and sales are declining. Not to mention Mr. Amazon, right? So what you do first, because you're not at that point where you're applying or understand adaptive leadership, or what Daniel does, he responds by cutting costs and pushing employees to sell harder. But customers continue to shift to online shopping, and employee morale begins to decrease. So how do we get to that adaptive leadership? What does that look like? What that looks like is that instead of resisting change, Daniel begins to, or you begin to explore, to engage with your team to explore new possibilities. You talk to your customers. and you go online, you invest in an e-commerce platform, and you upskill your employees for digital sales. Over time, your organization not only survives, but thrives in the online market. So the organization that we're talking about, let's take it to where we are. Is there a public sector or your organization within the public sector? And we respond by putting in all kind of different things sometimes. We try to cut costs. And a lot of the times, the first thing we cut is the training budget. And we vary that fund to somewhere else. Not a good idea, by the way. The upskilling is always needed. People's jobs, their tasks, bound will become higher, fatter. Because we can't hire anybody. And so people have to take on new roles. But people continue to not feel as if you're serving them. And employees begin to feel despondent and demoralized. So how do you change? Instead of expecting everybody to come to Kingston, we start by putting some our services out there in the rest of the country, because Kingston is not Jamaica. Neither is Kingston and Mobile. So go online. And there are lots of reasons why we would say we can't go online, because of the extent of the internet penetration in the country, and so on and so forth. That's no longer a valid argument. One of the organizations I like to talk about is the National Housing Trust. National Housing Trust does their refund, and people used to go line up at the National Housing Trust office early on New Year morning, speaking figuratively, and get their checks. They decided to go online. And the fact that some people didn't have online access didn't stop them. What they did is that they said, you're going to apply online. People were still able to go to their offices. But when you go to the office, you were still applying online. There were computers lined up in a room, and there were people who had been engaged to help you apply online. So the lack of penetration, or the lack of people's ability to navigate the system and so on, where they are, is not an excuse for us not to do what we need to do. We have to adapt, we have to think differently, and we have to put it out there. Take our service to the clients, and the service is not what we think they want, it is what they actually want. So what lesson comes from this? Adaptive leaders don't just respond to challenges, they embrace change, they experiment, and they empower their teams. Because you have to upskill people. You have to make people at the lowest levels in the organization be able to make decisions. And you have to trust them. So, I had the privilege of attending the launch of the Public Sector Learning and Development Policy recently at the Pegasus Hotel. And the Permanent Secretary, the Cabinet Secretary, Audrey Sewell, spoke on 2 different occasions. The second time she spoke, she was talking about the fact that there are these things that needed to be done, and she was the champion, was going to be spearheading what needed to be done to implement the policy. It's going to happen, and she was going to be spearheading it. And she said something that resonated with me. She said, and if you know me, it will be done. She said that. But she also said, those of you who know my antecedents know that it will be implemented. Those of you who know my personal leader brand know that it will be done. And so, as this part is not what she said, as head of the Jamaican Public Service, as a cabinet secretary, because of the leader brand that I have. Getting it done. Not just saying we're going to do it. That means that this can then or will then become the leadership brand of the organization as well, the entire public service. So she has a brand. She knows her brand, and people also know her brand. Jacinda Ardern. She came to, because of the age at which she became Prime Minister of New Zealand, she came to people's attention. The world knew about her. But her leadership during COVID-19 shed even more of a spotlight on her. Young woman, young mother, led her people in a particular way during COVID-19 that other organizations and other countries are looking at and looking to them, looking to New Zealand to say, what is it that they're doing that we can take on and do? Personal brand became a national brand. Compassionate and empathetic leader. Professor Gordon Shirley. Very quiet. Somebody I'd like to call a gentle giant. Very impactful. He's strategic, he's diplomatic, he's influential, he's academic. He's an academic and he's a thought leader and he's visionary. He has been an ambassador for Jamaica. He has worked at the University of the West Indies. He now works as president, and I don't remember the rest of the title, at the Port Authority of Jamaica. He sits on a number of different boards. He has been instrumental in our public sector transformation. And there's a lot more that I could say about him. He has a brand. People go after him, not just locally, but elsewhere. Our former Minister of Finance and the Public Service has a personal leader brand. It didn't stop with him. It began to pervade the rest of the service. His brand was so strong that the IMF came for him. That opportunity came running after him. He didn't have to go looking for it. And Usain Bolt, he has a brand of speed, excellence, confidence, charisma, national pride. Jamaica has a brand. We all have a brand, whether we are deliberate about it or not. Why not be deliberate and create a good brand, a powerful brand, a positive brand, a leadership brand that others will want to emulate? And I'm sure you can think about other persons with their brands as well. Not necessarily palatable, but they're making a difference. They're creating change and they're having an impact. So if you don't have a positive brand, your organization is still making an impact. It's important to know what your brand is, and it's important to determine whether or not that brand is something that's going to take you and the organization in a good direction. All right. I'm going to invite you, Georgia, that handout. Georgia should be putting a handout in the chat for you for us to go through very quickly a personal brand exercise. I don't know if time allows us to do that, Georgia.
Unfortunately,
time doesn't allow us to do that.
No, we have a little technical issue. Put it in the chat. Are you able to share it on screen then? Or would you like me to share it?
Yes, please.
Okay. If you can stop sharing.
I noticed there's a raised hand. It wasn't there before. Okay, Zayden, sure.
You're seeing it?
We can provide you with that afterwards. Yes, I'm seeing it. So let's just very quickly, we don't have the time for us to go through this in the way that I had hoped to. So when you do get this handout, we'll share it with you as long as you registered for this webinar, and I think everybody did. So start by self-reflection. So think about 3 words that describe you as a leader. You can scribble that down somewhere now. What are 3 words that describe you as a leader today? One of my words would be results-oriented. One of them is not a word, it's a term. The term would be a people developer, not in the sense of a learning and development facilitator, but being able to spot talent and nurturing talent within the organization. So what 3 words describe you as a leader today? And what 3 words would you like to describe you in the future? What do you believe are your unique strengths as a leader? Identify those things. Then, if you go down a bit, Georgia, craft your leadership brand statement. Use the following template to define your leadership brand. I want to be known for, by, through. So I want to be known for my core values, my authenticity, my integrity, my, what's another word? My service excellence, my service delivery. Through doing so and so and so. So I want to be known for my integrity by my team through transparent decision making. That's your leadership brand statement, right? And that's coming from those 3 questions that you responded to before. And as part of that process, we move to action planning. Identify one immediate step you can take to enhance your leadership brand. And then select a 30-day goal to demonstrate your leadership brand in action. How will you measure? And that's one of the ways in which now you partner with somebody. So when you identify a step you're going to take, don't keep it to yourself. Talk to somebody about it. Make them be your accountability partner. Set a goal and think about how you're going to measure that goal. Right? If we go to number 4, Georgia, tips for building your leadership brand. I'm feeling myself hurrying because I'm recognizing the time. So I need to calm myself down. So one of the tips is to be consistent. Again, ensure that your actions align with your brand. Communicate clearly. Let others know what you stand for. And seek feedback. Regularly ask your peers for insights on how you're perceived. And peers is broad in this context, right? Peers is broad in this context. So you're gonna get this handout by email, and you can do the exercise. And when you do anything and you learn, don't keep it to yourself. Have other people on your team, have your children do it, have your family members do it, have the people in your church do it, have young people in your community that you want to support do it, have older folks in your community, because we love to talk about young people and we leave out the older people, right? Their life not done yet. And I am particularly concerned about that now because I'm getting there, right? I'm in what you call the youth of old age. So it is important for all of us to do that kind of reflection and know and be intentional about the influence we're having. All right. So I went through that quickly. I'm feeling hurried. So Georgia, thank you very much for that. And if I go back to my sharing, just a few more ideas to share with you. The best way to predict your future is to create it, right? And I would not have done the job I think I need to do if I left this conversation and never talk about the public sector leadership brand, which you're a part of. At least most of you are. There are some core values that the public sector has established. You'll meet it in the learning and development policy, which has just been launched. One of them is accountability. The other is integrity, twinned with impartiality, innovation, service excellence, and inclusivity. Those are your values, your organization's values. How do your values line up? And a leadership statement that every public sector officer will get to know and is expected to live into is that I am a public officer and I am a leader. It doesn't matter where you sit. I'm going to start again. I am a public officer and I am a leader, responsible for using my strengths and for creating and sustaining positive relationships to provide services that consistently meet the changing needs of Jamaicans. And if you look close, you can begin to see those values being reflected in the statement. It is not we are, it is not they are, it is I am. As a public officer, as an officer anywhere you are in your organization, public or otherwise, you're responsible for using your strengths. You're responsible for sustaining and creating and sustaining positive relationships. And you're responsible for providing services that consistently meet the changing needs of your clientele. In the case of our Jamaican public sector, it's Jamaicans, the citizens, and the people who visit our country. So your leader brand is important. Your leadership brand is equally important. So talk with your HR managers, talk with the people in your organization about not just your leader brand, but let's talk also about your leadership brand and how you're going to create that culture to get you to that place. I have some other ideas that I want to share with you because all of that is good enough. And when I talk here now, I'm talking to myself as well. How are we going to become optimal leaders and have an optimal leadership culture or brand? Diet, and I don't mean that I'm sending you on a diet. Think about what you're putting into your body, what you're eating. How is that impacting you? Make sure that among the things that you're putting into your body are those whole foods, those plant-based, natural stuff. Not just stuff that are manufactured in places you don't even know. Take the time to do it, even if it means you have to do meal prep for a week. Because I know what the lifestyle is like, especially if you live somewhere like Kingston and you have to travel on the road where the traffic is crazy. And by the way, the rest of Jamaica is fast becoming, I don't know what to call it, a traffic gridlock St. Anne. When you're in Montego Bay, it's becoming a thing, right? Exercise. I had a bit of a struggle with myself this morning. Did I have the time to go and walk? Did I have the time to go and walk? And I had to say, you're going to walk no matter what. You need to walk and breathe and get some fresh air into your lungs. This one, sleep hygiene. Do you practice sleep hygiene? Are you sleeping? What are you sleeping with? Your phone? Books? High quality sleep is critical for your health and it's critical for your leadership as well. And you get the sleep that takes you through all of the stages. So going to bed at 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock in the morning doesn't do that for you, right? Magic happens metabolically when we sleep in the way that we have been designed to sleep. I don't think any magic has been happening for me in the last 2 weeks, but I'm going to go back to the magic. Sleep hygiene is important. Eliminate chronic stress. We're not sure how we're going to do that, but find ways to do that, right? And we are asking you not to manage it, but to get rid of it. We need an exit strategy, and I said we deliberately. Chronic stress kills us slowly. You might feel like it's not impacting us, but it's killing us. It's just doing it slowly. So high levels of cortisol and adrenaline must be optimized. Acute stress we can live with, but chronic stress, it's killing us. And importantly, find a purpose, find your purpose, because purpose heals. It puts a pep in your step. It gives you a reason for waking up every morning. It changes the way you look at life. And it changes the way people look at you, and it changes your behavior, and it changes how you impact. Your leadership brand is important. It causes you to stand out. It makes people run you down. And if we don't have any if we have people in here who are not Jamaicans, it makes people chase you. They want you to be on their team. That's why schools and football clubs and all the other kinds of clubs buy team members because of the brand. They want you, they're coming after you, and they're willing to pay big money for you. But don't forget those things that are going to feed you and keep you alive, not kill you slowly. One of them is purpose. Purpose heals. I thank you for your time and for your attention. And Georgia, over to you. Oh, Andrea, over to you.
Thank you so much, Anne-Marie. Wow. And the good thing is that we have been practicing some of what you said, because I see in chat some feedback.
Yes.
Excellent presentation. The nuggets being validated with relatable and inspiring life stories. So compelling, 100%. All right. At this time, we're going to be taking just about 2 or 3 comments or questions. And so I invite persons to use the raise hand feature, and we will allow you to pose your questions. All right, so let's see. All right, Sonia, I'm going to allow you to speak. So go ahead.
First of all, I'd like to say hearty good morning or hearty howdy to my dear friend Anne-Marie, my friend and colleague. I am public sector, and if you recognize the voice, Anne-Marie, you know that we call on you maybe 3 times a year, you and the MIND team. So hello to Georgia as well.
Hey,
I just
Sonia.
wanted to say that the excellence of this presentation is unmatched. The language was clear, simple, easy to follow, but more importantly are the introspective points that you made. This is something, I know you know that you can monetize it, but I needed to give good, strong credit to Mind for thinking to give this presentation free of cost. I have to say thank you to my friend Claudette who brought it to my attention. And this is something that after you put it on the YouTube channel, you really do have to find some way to get the message across, to promote it so that persons can go to the YouTube channel and watch it, right? You know, there's so much to follow in these days, so much to listen to. People are going to be selective to what they listen to, but this has a nationalistic appeal and market that I hope Mind finds a way to get out there. It is really, really excellent, Anne-Marie. Congratulations, Mind. Keep on doing an excellent job. And this is a message from your colleague, friend of Mind, Sonia Morgan.
Thank you so much, Sonia, for that endorsement. And definitely we will be marketing, but we also invite all our participants here to go to our YouTube channel, to share the link with others so that we can continue to spread the word around. We really appreciate
Okay, will do.
All right. I move over to
May I, Andrea?
Sorry?
May I?
Yes, sure.
Thank you, colleague and friend Sonia, for that feedback. It's highly appreciated on both. And I'm speaking now because I'm still a part of the Mind family on my behalf as well as Mind's behalf. And I want to just endorse what Andrea said, that we are inviting you to continue to spread the message and to invite others to feed as well. Yeah? Thank you.
Yes, I will.
I'm going to allow Tanise to share. Go ahead, Tanise.
Oh, I was wondering how would we be able to get in contact with Miss Smith in case our departments were actually planning a retreat and would like to discuss it with my colleagues to have her as our guest speaker. So I wanted to know how could we get in contact. Thank you.
All right, Tanise, I thought Georgia was going to respond to that question.
I was just about
Tanise,
to.
can provide you with contact information, but you can get to me through Georgia and not.
Okay, thank you.
So Tanise, I'm just going to put my email address in the chat and you can email me.
Okay,
Tanis, which
thanks.
organization are you with?
The Ministry of Economic Growth and Job Creation.
All right. So mine can also follow up with her, right, Georgia? All right.
Correct.
All right. We'd allow one other comment or question. Anybody else would like to comment or ask a question?
I saw another hand up disappeared.
All right. All right, Michelle, go ahead. Michelle? Oh, she put her hand down. All right, Tanis, did you raise your hand again? Oh, no.
No, that was by arrow, sorry.
Okay, all right, thanks. All right, so we see the feedback coming in. I appreciate this presentation, very good. And thank you so much for your kind comments. All right, at this time, I really want to thank Anne-Marie for this inspiring, thought-provoking, inspirational presentation. Definitely, based on the comments, Anne-Marie, you really touched a chord, and I see someone here saying thank you from Trinidad and Tobago. So it's not just Jamaica, but we have other Caribbean partners who have joined us. All right, we really thank you for this presentation, developing of your personal brand. The strategies were right on point. And the thing is that there are practical things that we can, implement quite easily if we are committed to the task. Thank you so much. Thanks to all our participants for being here and for your engagement in the different ways. And just before we go, I want you to give us feedback on the session. We have noted your comments, but there is an evaluation link that will be posted in chat at this time. And we just ask you to take a few minutes, no more than 2 minutes or so, to complete this evaluation. So it's going to be placed right now in chat, and we ask that you complete it for us.